My name's Damien.
It's gonna happen.
Should we just start over and come up with an order?
All the costumes are like,
Can we
you go for it, David?
Do we want to do the order of the current order for like this week? You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, let's do that.
Sounds logical.
Me, Derek, Parker, Jess, Damien.
Okay, I'm the last one. Great.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the next week of News from the Real World comments, where we take the top 10 comments and articles from the previous week of import, and we talk about them. So I'm Allie. I'm a third-year SMPM grad.
I'm Derek. I'm a second-year costume production grad.
I'm Parker. I'm a first-year SMPM grad.
I'm Jessica. I'm a third-year costume design grad.
I'm Damien. I'm a third-year costume design grad.
And I'm still a logo.
Oh my God.
Also, but a very important logo, and like really important in what you do. So,
Yeah.
Thank you. So the first article we're going to start with is called "The Paradoxes of Trying to Make Art During a Pandemic" on Exit magazine online by Alex Seville. Elise Seville. It's going really well. So this article was talking about how we are feeling the pressures to create art right now, and how theater especially is feeling the pressure to not kind of go away. After this is all over, we still want to be here in some sense, but so we're trying to make art currently while we are apart, but it is difficult because in an art form that draws its definition and identity from the very nature of people being in the same room together, it's really hard to create art separately, and to feel that pressure is kind of unfair to begin with. And she puts it really clearly, but I do think that this is an opportunity to rethink both work and what being in a room together means. It's not necessarily interactive live streams. It's something of the other things that theater is good at, such as empathy and working together. So it's kind of that. She talks about that and goes into, like I said, like the difficulties of being separate and trying to create, and just like the emotional impact that this is having kind of on all of us, and feeling the need to be productive and not give ourselves that time to kind of cope with it. Really, really good article though, and she has a lot of paradoxes listed that are so simple and yet so like, yes. So the first one is like, an art form that's universally seen as good for you is now certifiably bad for your health. So yeah, just really interesting. Huge world events make you think small. And there's a really comforting part in there too. She says, I know that 1, theater isn't going anywhere. 2, people won't forget you if you stay quiet for a month or even a year. And 3, it's better to make one creative thing you're truly proud of than 11 billion forgettable bits of hack work. So yeah, so that was just a really, really interesting read about the current state of affairs.
It's hard not to listen to that and make parallels to the way CMU's handled like how we're going to carry out these productions for the rest of the semester. and frankly, seeing how many different avenues everyone's gone on. And I think it's so cool to see the creativity in what is possible and these new constraints that we're kind of living in. So there are silver linings there, I think. Even though we're not able to be in the same room, we're still able to collaborate in a similar way to what we do when we're together.
Yeah. I do wonder, and like this is something that's been on my mind a lot just because I am graduating this year, and like it's something that I don't believe she touched on it when I went through and read it, but just in regard to like people whose careers were literally just about to be launched, who essentially like, you know, for someone who is graduating, or even just thinking about like a performer who literally was going to have a debut role, and how suddenly it's not happening anymore, or, you know, like that's a situation where I'm like, well, what do you do? Like, what can you do in order for you to, I guess, start the ground running? And like, I think that's what's been on my mind for the past, you know, since we've been in this situation, is just because like, I don't know how to be proactive, you know, considering like the world that I've known for the past 3 years, you know, the whole part of being in this community and in this like institution is because we're going to launch your career. And it's like, well, like I no longer have a showcase. I'm no longer going to meet the people that I was expecting to meet. Like, I don't know if there's going to be an industry for me to be able to walk into. And like, if it's going to be reduced, like, do I even have a chance against the people who are actually returning when I was just trying to enter? So yeah, that's one of the things that I've been focusing or just been thinking about a lot. And like, when the floodgates reopen, like, what is it going to be, and what is it going to do to someone in my position?
Yeah, I'll say on the opposite side, like to that, like, because I also feel the same concerns that Damien is feeling. But then I think to myself, like, how many TV shows were in their production cycle to like put out the next season, and they're pushed behind. And now once things open, they're going to have to crunch out like, let's say their second or third season to then get to the fourth and fifth seasons that they should have already been working on post. So I'm wondering if maybe there's also going to be this massive influx. Like, I'm sure there's going to be productions that get canceled because the TV networks are going to say, like, what is the returning show that has the most money, etc. Maybe we don't do new work. Now we focus on the returning shows. But then I wonder if there's going to be just a massive influx of work as well. And if that is also going to play in our benefit or also be a detriment, because there might be a lot of people being like, oh, well, there's a lot of work in that industry. Let me just jump into it, and not be as experienced, etc. And like, there's going to be so much, it's going to be an interesting dynamic. And I think there's definitely, regardless of what's going to happen, a restructuring to it all. But I imagine it should be interesting on the production side to be like, how do we get out that next season and then also get the next seasons out after that? And how do we do that successfully? Are we shooting in tandem? Do they hire twice as many people, but will they have the budget to handle it?
But then the issue with that, I mean, just like in relation to the virus, I mean, I heard rumors from one of our professors, actually. I was talking to her just yesterday about like, once things do reopen, you know, there's still this whole idea of being cautious in terms of the virus itself.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, there have been talks of possibly quarantining entire crews, like production crews. And when you're on set, you are on set, you don't go home, just for the sake that somebody could potentially, you know, kind of restart so yeah. But yeah, I mean, going back to like the article, like I just feel like some of those paradoxes that she referenced, it's like, I wish they would apply more to someone like me who is in this position. But like, yeah, I mean, they do to a certain extent, but like, that's one thing that I'm like, what is going to happen?
Well, and it's interesting because so Mary Emily actually said in her comment on this article, like, theater isn't gonna, like, it's true, it's not gonna go anywhere, but like the landscape is going to change drastically. Like, it has to, like you were talking about, like quarantining crews or just like how to move forward from here, because we can't go backwards, right? Like, there's no like going back from this. Like, this has already happened. So there's got to be a way that we move forward in a different direction, and it is going to be different. And I think something I've been hearing, though, in terms of, in relation to what you were saying about the entering the workforce, I've been hearing from like friends our age, but also from people on the other end of this, like, this is making people really reevaluate what they want. Like, people who have been so like work have gotten the chance to step back and go, I don't know that I want this anymore. Like, I want to do something else, or I have to put a different priority ahead of, you know, what I had been doing. So I think it's going to be interesting to see who actually chooses to return after this. Mm-hmm. Who on the other end goes, I was going to retire anyway, and why am I killing myself just to get to a magic number? Like, I'm just going to, you know what I mean?
Or like those who I was going to like save this comment for my article, but I'll say it now. It's like, how many like people who are doing side projects now that they wouldn't normally have allotted time for, and then like maybe starting their own personal business or something like that, and be like, well, I had this nest egg and I can, you know, sit on this and do that, and like pursue this passion instead. It will be interesting. I mean, certainly will be different. the world has definitely changed.
I guess I also like, kind of bouncing off of that, I do worry about the people that don't have the resources to be able to do something like that. Like, that don't have, whether it's like physical resources or, financial resources to be able to do something like that, that find themselves in a position of like, where is my first paycheck going to come from?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
I'm hoping the government's going to just take notice and be like, maybe there's a lot of like influx of like small businesses, and like there's going to be like a lot of more like grants focused towards helping out small businesses, like in nation home businesses, like instead of doing all of this exporting and like relying on other people to like basically provide our comfort. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, there's definitely a double-sided coin.
She definitely brings that up with the whole like, it is definitely a privilege to be able to step back and reassess what work means. Like that's definitely a privilege.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's a good segue into my article, which is that was a takeaway that I had from it. But it's called "The Importance of Art in the Time of Coronavirus." It's from theconversation.com, and it was written by Louis Netter, and pretty much the title is self-explanatory, but part of the article says art connects us to the foreign, the exotic, and the impossible, but in our current context, it also connects us to a world where anything is possible, a world out of our grasp for now. And it goes on to talk a lot about how art is autobiographical in a way, and that in times of like great stress like this and great change, teasing out like your sense of self is important and also a privilege, like to have that opportunity to even step back and be like, who am I right now? Like ultimately is a privilege, because a lot of people are worrying about more pressing, real kind of basic needs right now. Yeah, Cecilia said that in the comments about it being autobiographical. And she said, this makes it even more important for us to make art now because it can act as a good diagnostic to how we're feeling. So we can do something to make ourselves mentally be more okay. So yeah, I liked it. I think making art is kind of a privilege. For commercial reasons, it's like a whole other world, and this whole thing is expanding my mind up to like the range of art and profit and commerciality, and how all of those different areas are gonna meet this event in different ways. And being able to make your own art for yourself is a good way to like maintain some kind of like sustainability. I don't know.
I think one of the most compelling things that I found about that article was the second half where he mentions his experience in Nairobi. And I think one of the quotes that really stuck out to me was where he referenced he says that places like this, like the towns that he was in Kenya, it's capitalism's dustbin. And when capitalism coughs, these communities perish. And how like even from the onset of like walking through that community and seeing the beauty that is such a close-knit community, and how like, they don't, I think he references like how lucky we are that we have the luxury of being able to share things like Netflix suggestions and that sort of thing, and how like that sort of thing doesn't exist within these communities. So when a virus strikes them, it affects them in a completely different way than it would affect any of us. Like the entire community could perish, and like they're not going to have the same sort of I guess what am I trying to say? Like they don't have the same sense of home in the fact that like when they are quarantined at home, if that is something that they go through, like they don't have the luxury of having entertainment when so much of what they find entertainment in does involve a sense of community. So yeah, it kind of, in comparison to the previous article we were talking about, it does kind of make you open your eyes of like, things suck, but they could be a lot worse. So
I also think it was weird, like he pointed out in the article that like the internet is kind of clogged with like senseless entertainment and to the undiscerning eye, like it's hard to tell that from art. And I'm kind of like, who are we to judge like the media that we're consuming right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever gets you through it in a way. And isn't that what art is for? Like, why can't a TikTok be art? Why can't a meme be art in a weird freaky?
But it can though. Like a TikTok can be art. It can be informative. Like a 15-second video and editing that and making it concise. Like I've seen obviously some stupid things on the internet, but also there's like, if you Google like TikTok artists, like to see how people are utilizing that form of communication as a medium is really, really cool. But then also like to speak on to like what you were saying with him mentioning how there's like other communities out there. I think like it's naive of everyone to say like, we're in this together. Of course we all are emotionally, but like my experience is very different from someone else's experience. And again, noting privilege is super important, and like noting that being an artist is a luxury in a society. So in good times, that's when art flourishes. And that's when you're seeing that there's time and money to be put towards like that kind of concept. But I think it's really interesting and fascinating that in a time where all economics have sort of stood still, people are still reverting to like art as a coping mechanism. And it makes me think of like artists like going to jails and working with trauma patients, like kind of use the art to cope with what's going on. I think it's really cool to see how people are coping with it, even if it is a TikTok video, And then I watch it and I feel better too. And then it just, And
I think that's a really, like, not only is it definitely a privilege to do so, but it's also really difficult and I think really courageous to be able to do that. Like, referencing back to the previous article too, they said that a lot of art reflective of these kinds of times are post-crisis, not mid-crisis, not like during the crisis. So to be able to make whatever kind of art right now, it's so courageous and so like, and if it is therapeutic for you, right? Like not like it's needs to be a thing that you do, but if it is therapeutic, then that's another added bonus. And like, but it's definitely a privilege to be able to look at it while it's happening and process it and then create art about it. So, and
then on Instagram, there's this great handle called Isolation Creation that was created by Jamie Beck, and she's a photographer living in Paris. And if you just even search that hashtag, it's amazing to see what people are coming up with as far as like reactions to it, escapism, coping, and all of the above. So I think it's really cool to see what's coming out of it in the time of it. Like you said, not post, not before, but during is pretty cool.
Yeah,
definitely. Shifting gears a little bit, completely actually, into kind of a more specific role within theater. The article is called What Dramaturgs Do and Why/When You Need One. It was posted on the Producer's Perspective website and actually featured a 45-minute video of 5 panelists. The moderator, who is also a dramaturg, Eric Webb, then before Dramaturgs, Ashley Chang, Jenna Clark Embrey, Jack Phillips Moore, and Jill Rafson. They all have incredible resumes and kind of talk about that throughout the 45 minutes about how experienced they are in dramaturgy. This panel, it's a lot to condense into a summary, but essentially it's geared in this conference towards producers and writers. So these dramaturgs are kind of talking with writers about that partnership that they have and how they view themselves in the process and kind of just. So one of the ways one dramaturg kind of summed it up is that the dramaturg is the midwife. If the director and the writer are the parents and the production is the child, the dramaturg kind of helps that along and is there to aid the two of them. Another explained it as being an extra pair of eyes to help the play become the best version of itself. So really kind of taking that writer's initial vision and trying to capitalize on that the most and make sure that that is the central idea that keeps getting brought back. Some misconceptions that they talked about was that the dramaturg does not write the script or really any part of it. One of them joked that there are 3 fundamental urges: food, water, and rewriting someone else's script. So it was very funny, just because it was a lighthearted conversation, but they're really aiding the writer and not doing that work. They're a resource. Dramaturgy also does not only do old plays, they do a lot of new work. Typically, most of these artists are working with new work. And they say about 10% of the job is looking things up and research. And it's a lot more about the relationship with the writer and bringing that production to the truest version of itself. They also talked a lot about dramaturgy in musicals, which is something that's kind of a new thing in terms of that, in that world. And the biggest kind of point that came out of that discussion was, don't change the book scene. That is kind of what the initial urge is. If there's an issue dramaturgically, is to change the text itself, when that issue very well may be in the musical number itself. They just don't want to go through
because it takes less collaboration.
It takes less collaboration, and they're worried about changing music when they can just change a word in a book scene. And each of the dramaturgs actually talked about how they have experience composing, which is just the brains of these people is phenomenal. Like, listening to them talk about it is absolutely crazy. They talk about being lit managers as well. And that's more about giving info and demystifying what their specific organization is about and the specific parameters that organization works within in terms of what shows they can actually produce. They also talked a lot about rehearsal and being in the room, and that jumping to changing text is the initial idea. What is normally done is to change the text, but what good dramaturgs do is they look at how the lighting designer or the sound designer can effectively make that same change in the overall production without jumping straight to changing text.
Yeah, because they're not called playwright turgs; they're called dramaturgs.
Exactly. Anyway, that's kind of the summary. It was very dense, but it was a very, very. It was good to watch and very informative.
I think that's really interesting. I had a conversation with a friend like right before everything hit, when you could still, go out and sit in a cafe. The days. And it was interesting because he wants to be he's an actor, but he wants to move into dramaturgy. But he was saying how what people often think of dramaturgs is really kind of turning him off, and he's like, I want to do more like outreach, like not even not co-pro, but like bringing if a show has to do with an outside artist or an outside group of people, or like specific to a location or a culture or whatever, he wants to like do on the ground research and networking with that group or that, culture. And I was like, that's really interesting. And it's not something that you normally hear about, especially if you just think about like dramaturgy in the rehearsal room. You're like, yeah, we know what they do, but like it's so, right, like you said, like so vast and varied and changeable, which is kind of cool, I think.
They all talked about not having templates because every production is incredibly different from the next. And with one production, you need to give writers assignments and homework is kind of the way they were talking about things. And with another, that wouldn't be necessary, so just kind of taking it step by step.
I do wonder though, like, Ali, just based on what you were saying, like how much of that though does start falling outside of the scope of what, the standard dramaturg does? Because like, and I say that just because like my experience working in a regional theater, like there are positions that are designated for that sort of like, community outreach and that sort of like pulling people in and like getting the community involved. It's like, obviously like there can be a lot of crossover, but I'm curious to know like what other dramaturgs would feel of that. Like if they feel like, well, if that's what you're interested in doing, then maybe dramaturgy isn't necessarily the right track to follow. Like, I guess like, or I mean, it's just probably like a pretty fluid sort of situation. And side note, to be completely honest, I had no idea what a dramaturg was until I started working in a professional theater. No idea. So that, it just goes to show that like they need to be talked about more. I mean, like I never heard that word in high school. I never heard that word in my undergrad. You know, I was involved with the theater departments in both. So, yeah.
And even if it is something, Parker, like you said about like dramaturgs / literary managers, or like, you know what I mean? And it's interesting because I feel like more, or maybe I just didn't realize it when I was younger, but it seems like it's an increase, like an actual increase. It seems like more and more positions are becoming less, I don't want to say defined, but more with a greater ability to be customized. Does that make any sense? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we just talked to a stage manager who's like, I really liked the artistic side, so like I decided to become a producing artist, and you're like, whoa, yeah, it's interesting crossover.
It's interesting to see the benefit that they have on a production. Like at Theater Latte Da, who Ali and I have worked with the stage manager there. I've seen 2 productions there, Assassins and Hedwig, and both they have a resident dramaturg. So they really had incredible program notes. The detail and the graphics that were created in the program help you understand the production in a completely new way. It greatly benefits the theater goer to kind of look through that program and get a lot of additional context into a somewhat complicated play.
Yeah, I guess like I'm not really realizing until right now that like I had a former career as an actor. I'm imagining all the shows that I did if we hadn't had a dramaturg, and that like we would have been lost. There would have been no central focusing point for like the world of the play, because the director is very busy doing things like staging and logistics and coaching actors and coordinating with the production team. And then the stage manager is busy doing their thing, and a writer is busy doing their thing. So it's like, oh, there is actually like this whole gap of an area of someone that needs to be there to bring everyone together in terms of the text.
It's like without the dramaturg, it kind of ends up falling onto the designers to then cultivate and research and create that world. So for like Tiger at the Gates, like we didn't have a dramaturg, and we were placing it into a modern, non-existent world that was referencing all of the world's past. And I know that we all did an extensive amount of research and finally landed on something cohesive together. But had there been a dramaturg, I think it would have been a little bit easier, or maybe it would have ended up different. It would have been, it just adds an extra voice to the room, and I think like a nice backbone or a guideline for other people to kind of work into, because you know, we luckily had a cohesive design at the end, but sometimes without a dramaturg and you go see a show and you're like, what happened? Like, where's all these ideas coming from? It doesn't make sense, but so pivotal to helping tell that story.
Totally. And they even talk in the article about, or in the video about, if you have 2 separate people doing that job, it just gets done in such a much richer way. And directors are certainly capable of doing that research. And they even touch on how, yes, the dramaturg does research, but they're not the only person that does research. A successful production, every single member of that production is doing their own research.
Yeah, bringing something to the table. Yeah,
totally. It's very eye-opening.
So speaking about strong voices in the room, Jess, do you want to talk about our next article?
Please intro me, because I'm still always trying to figure out where's the share screen button.
No, I got you.
I'm just like, oh dear.
There you go.
Okay, so I have the article from Variety, which says why Almost Love director Mike Doyle insisted openly gay actors play the lead couple, written by Mark Malkin. It's like a really great article. It's something that we have definitely all touched on before, like our roles written, like roles that are written specifically for somebody. Of course, that person who is defined by that role should play that character. But it was interesting to read the article and hear his opinions on it, and then also to read the comments that all the students said. And I just have to like openly agree with everybody and say, like, I think that it's great to have roles that are, for example, a gay character played by a gay actor. And I think that that's really great. But I also think that, you know, everyone is also an artist. And so challenging somebody to play outside their wheelhouse is also part of the conversation. I love seeing the representation and the conversation happen, but it is also sad that it's one of those things where it's like, when does it just become the norm and we don't need to talk about it anymore? Or, you know, why do we have to celebrate it? Why does it have to be brave? It's just who you are, and we are a multitude of different types of people and personalities in the world. You know, we should know that as a species, but apparently it's still always a surprise to some people. And I don't know, I just thought it was a really nice article. It was a cool thing to hear about and to read about, and I just thought everyone's comments were really eloquently written. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, it's like a weird intersection of like identity and the role of an actor.
Yeah.
Like how much should you be expected to identify with a character in order to be culturally sanctioned to play that character, to play that role?
Well, with you saying that, it reminds me of, like, and I've mentioned this before, but I worked on Street Children, and it had 12 people who were all over the spectrum, and just one person did say to me, like, I don't want to play transgendered characters even though I'm trans, because I am a woman. I want to play female characters. And then another person said to me, I'm okay with playing trans characters because it's part of who I am and it's part of my representation, and I want to be able to act all different characters and actors and et cetera, et cetera. And it just shows that conversation is so dynamic and it's so multifaceted, and everyone has an opinion and every opinion is valid too. Yeah.
I think for me, just because like I have been kind of wearing a writer's hat for the past couple of months, I think I read it and I appreciated what it was, but one of the things that did stick out to me is like the roles of gay characters that are being created, and how I feel like we are starting to get into the same pattern where it's always a middle class, like, you know, pretty well off, or just like, you know, supported, not always supported, but just like, I feel like we are falling. I'm almost feeling like the gay stereotypes are resurfacing. Like, you know, like, yes, we now have gay actors that are playing gay characters, but like, how many more like Cams and Mitchells from Modern Family are we going to get? How many more, you know, Will and Jack from Will and Grace's are we going to get? You know, when am I going to see like the, you know, the gay character who lives in a rural town in the middle of like Arkansas? Like, when am I going to hear those stories? And it's just like, reading his responses and everything, I was like, I fully support this. However, there is a whole other skew of issues that I feel like we also need to start tackling in conjunction with providing opportunities for queer actors. So it's just, that's what was kind of in the back of my mind as I was reading it. And hopefully, like, it's exciting to see that we do have these roles and that we do have the right performers for these roles. But like, I feel like we're now in a good place, especially like, you know, given the pandemic, for those writers or for people out there to start creating those roles and start finding those stories that like are worth telling and opening opportunities for an even larger pool of people.
And also viewers too, to like demand, like, I want to see other than the stereotype, please.
Yeah, it's almost like representation, but which is important, but across all intersectional identities. It's like you can start with something like, okay, a queer character, but where does their identity intersect in other ways, and how can we bring that to light rather than being so myopic about their identity?
Yeah.
Yep. I guess, let's see. Going on to my article. So music copyright infringement is beginning to make sense again. This is by Bob Alsinski, and it was written for Forbes.
Is that Katy Perry?
It is indeed Katy Perry.
Hilarious. She looks like
the reason Katy Perry is in the article is because they actually referenced what's the name? Dark Horse, right? Yes, that's her name, the song. But they referenced, because that was a song that has faced a lawsuit in the past for copyright infringement. So what this article focuses on is the fact that we have, and by we I mean like the music industry has kind of is shifting gears, because essentially in the past couple of years with a lot of copyright infringement lawsuits, things are getting like, we're looking at very minute details that are truly like, you start to question, like, is that really that's considered copyright infringement? You know, because it's kind of a bit of a stretch. But what this person's pointing out, he's pointing out that we're kind of shifting back into like, you know, okay, that was a bit of a.
I know you're frozen.
Ooh.
And I, ooh,
Oh no! First technical difficulty.
Okay, that was so strange because like everyone else looked fine for me, and like my screen, I looked fine. Oh no, it's my internet connection's unstable.
It's also like the weather is insane today. It's like gorgeous and crazy.
Can you see me now? We good? Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just that, you know, like a couple of cases have been overturned or revisited, and you know, most recently, when he points out that when things got really confusing was when Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines was on the wrong end because of a case against the estate of Marvin Gaye. In this case, the infringement that they were referring to was not even so much the songs, or like the lyrics or the melody, but it was actually the fact that they created the same general vibe and atmosphere. And,
wow.
and to most people's ears, there is very little similarity. So that's where, like, basically from that point forward, writers and performers were just kind of like, what are we going to do at this point? And so like the most fascinating thing that I got out of this article is that because of that, what they've started doing is they purposely will list every single person that was present in the room in order to avoid this sort of like issue. So that's why some songs, a lot of pop songs that you see, 20 people listed, like anywhere, you know, because that way it can't entirely be put on one person as like this person like is you know. And so they're almost doing it as a protection because things have gotten so crazy.
Like
So then but then like what's been happening is like as certain cases are going back, and as they put it, he said that we're kind of going back onto the road of common sense, and he referenced a specific case against Led Zeppelin, where they won a lawsuit against singer guitarist, or the estate of singer guitarist Randy Wolf, and people were essentially asking if the similarities didn't bother him when he was alive, why does it bother him? Like, why is the estate bothered now? Like, why is this becoming a thing? So luckily, you know, that's kind of what's brought things to the forefront. And then just to kind of tie it all up, you did bring it up at the end, like, this was ridiculous. A company, Trisona Multimedia LLC, sued a high school. They sued the high school choral boosters. They sued the high school choral teacher and a couple of the Booster Association parents for copyright infringement because they used pieces of pop songs that the choir sang during a fundraising concert.
I think it's like a morality thing. Oh my God.
And so the company lost. They like the high schoolers, but it's just like, he kind of like basically ended it with saying, are we really at the point where we are targeting high school students who are literally raising money for a non-profit cause? This is literally for the sake of them being able to like function as an organization. So I think that's, you know, the main gist of the article is just kind of like, it is tricky. I understand no artist, you know, art should ever be copied, but we're kind of like grasping at straws here. Like we're like just looking for any sort of excuse to sue someone.
Right, and like I understand that like you can't make a law that's like no reproduction without, you know, purchasing, and also like where you're making money off of it, like, and I understand that, but you can't make a law that's like, no making money off of it, except for if you're a high school that's doing it for a nonprofit cause and it's really good. You know what I mean? Like, and I get it, but like you said, really, is this where we're trying to really stick it? Like, come on.
Yeah.
These are the songs we sing to each other too. It's like, you're gonna take that away from people, like, and I think like my partner Will was saying, like, there's something where it's like there isn't an infinite amount of song or choral rearrangements, so eventually we will start hearing similarities. And like, even he was playing a song the other day and I was like, I think I've heard this before. He's like, no, it's a brand new song. So it's like, you know, in like the fashion industry, they have like 5 points of change, but like with music, I think it's hard. And then like once it gets out into the ether, like, you put art out there. If art's a commodity, like art is a very difficult thing to like put money on and like actually like make sure that like you can get profit from it. And then you're also making it to put out there into the public. And if someone's like singing your song, and you know what I don't know.
And it's and it's like, it's almost like
trying to say
theater, because it's like there's no new stories, right? Like there's no new stories. So like that, you know, from that perspective, it's like, well, then that's saying that, what was that Woody Allen movie, Blue Sapphire, Blue something, I don't know what. Is that like, should they be sued by Tennessee Williams because it was basically the same as Streetcar? Like,
yeah, or like anytime you do My Fair Lady or Pygmalion or any of that, like Cinderella, is Disney gonna get sued?
Right, and it's like art should build off of one another and itself. You know, like you think about, oh my God, people from like Mozart to Chuck Berry stole from themselves. Like they stole the same. Like, come on, you know.
I do think it's positive that this article is talking about how it is changing from this like nitpicky, weird, like not important lawsuits. Like, you know, it's nice that it is in a upward trajectory here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As he said it best, he's like, it's nice to see that common sense is once again going to prevail. And I was like, yes, it is. Now let's just apply that to everything else.
Yeah.
Right. So the only segue I have is an upwards trajectory. I know, it was weak. I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay.
Anyway, so this one was how to use a screw extractor to remove damaged screws like a pro.
Oh my God, this is amazing. I can't wait.
Toolreviews.com by
Tell me more.
Chris Bull, there we go. So, I mean, it was not too much to say about this one. I mean, it's how to extract stripped screws with a screw extractor. And basically, the big thing you need to know is that it needs to, the important part is in its design. And so it's a tapered drill bit with reverse threading. And basically, how it works is that like it screws down into the screw and then you slowly take it out, and because it has reverse threading, it catches it and pulls it out easily. And like, that's pretty much it. I did really like Elliot's comment on this article because he said, if you're in a pinch, put a rubber band on like the tip of your screw and then it does the same, and like it catches, it does the same thing. So
truth be told, I thought a rubber band was a screw extractor because that was the only thing that I had known about.
Or sorry, on the on your drill.
Honestly, reading that article is probably the most butch I have felt since 2020 started. So I learned something. I did learn something.
Right? So, you know, things you learn. So that's, I mean, but that's legitimately pretty much all I have to say about that one. Cool. Definitely good to know because like, I know Parker and I have dealt with, and like, it doesn't bring it to like a screeching halt, but we've dealt with trying to get numbers off of like the fronts of our stage. And like when there's a strip screw, it's just annoying. Like it takes you twice as long as it should. So yeah, cool to know.
Something to invest in.
What?
Something to invest in.
Yeah, I want one.
Upgrade your SM toolkits today.
Right. And I mean, like, I liked Elliot's thing about the rubber band because it was like a lot of comments on that article were like, yeah, if you have one of these, it's probably going to sit in the bottom of your toolkit for a really long time until you need it. But like,
I'm like the queen of stripping screws. I'm really bad with it, so I'm really glad to know that.
no.
I can segue into something else that I know nothing about. But
Yeah,
I'll
let's
talk
go.
So, the title is called "How Previs Has Gone Real Time," and I will confess, before I did some Googling, I was like, "What is Previs? Is it a program? Is it just the title of the article was so mysterious to me because I have no background in this, even though I work in film. But yeah, it was from VFXvoice.com, Visual Effects Magazine. It was written by Ian Fales. I'm going to let one of the students in the comments summarize this for me because I won't be able to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Margaret Shoemate, thank you so much for saying this. She said, "This is really freaking cool. The jump to real-time rendering is what this is about. So basically you're, as I understand, on set and they can render different visual effects things right there so that you can plan different shots and change things and be adaptable." But Margaret said the jump to real-time rendering means that VR and AR tools that have been generating so much buzz in the last few years can really be exploited in a practical world. A director can now actually use a virtual set because if they want something changed, they can say, change that, or let's try this, and see it in real time, instead of having to wait hours for everything to re-render. That changes everything. It makes it feasible to use virtual settings, which opens up crazy effects and opportunities for big studios, and a cheap, fast way to produce content for smaller ones. So this is awesome. People are basically using visual effects platforms in conjunction with game world building platforms. And when they combine them, you can look on a monitor, a visual effects monitor on set, and plan and change shots and use physical things on set and motion capture in coordination with visual effects planning. And it makes the whole process a lot smoother and faster and cheaper. So it's really cool.
That's really cool. It's weird that this article comes in this week for me personally. I mean, I'm the assistant production manager for Blacktop Sky, and right now they're actually creating a virtual world in terms of their like production, since we were to start rehearsal the day we got back from spring break. And they're in the schedule, we've actually had to block out 3 days just for rendering, because to get all of it together at the end of the process, that's phenomenal technology. It's very cool.
Yeah.
To cut that down.
Efficiency.
And like you said, like saves money. Like they talked about Ford versus Ferrari in there, which, oh my God, such a good movie. But like, yeah, I can only imagine like getting the stunt guys and the like car racers to actually do those shots and then look at it and then be like, no, I don't like it. Or like taking the time to render, then, that takes more people's time too. So like just kind of tightening everything up.
I will say, it does kind of scare me though for people who have been doing like the rendering for a living, and like what it's gonna do to their job market. And like, it's exciting and I think it's great, but it's like when you do have a very specific skill set, like are these people gonna start losing jobs, or are there gonna be opportunities for them to like jump in and have training to be able to be a part of a production?
Yeah, it's a powerful technology.
Well, I guess my question then is, because from what it sounds like, it's just giving them more tools to like do their job. Like I don't know that necessarily the director is going to pick up a thing in the middle of a take or in between takes and be able to do it. I think it would still be that person. Hopefully, it would still be that person, but they just have better, faster technology on their hands, maybe. So.
I feel like it's similar to like the fashion industry when people thought like digital rendering was going to take away like the artist rendering, but there's still companies and still people that there's still the demand for like the artist rendering as well, and actually a higher demand because not so many people know how to do it, but a lot of people know how to digitally render now.
The next article is quite short, about the same length as these comments. And I thought it was, I agree with all the comments that were made. It's just this cute story, and it's short, but it's got such an impact, and it's really got a great message. Sydney Bolton of soundgirls.org kind of tells the story about first getting started in the industry and respect among working with different bands. And there was this one band, they were a math rock band called TTNG, and I guess they were just so they were so accepting, and they were so nice, they were so thankful that she reached out and thanked them a few days later, and now has made it a point in her like daily routine, if a group of artists comes through that are particularly great and impact her in some way, she reaches out and makes sure that they know that. And just keeping that kind of circle going in the industry is, and that thanks and that positivity is great. One of the quotes, simply being friendly and rolling with the punches makes or breaks stressful situations. And I think that's so true, especially as a manager, to know that attitude is 95% of how you're dealing with issues. It was a cool article. Very short.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because, like, I've noticed that in theater, but also, like, in everyday stuff. And it's funny because as managers, like, people, I don't know, like, we don't do it for the thanks, right? So, like, you know, like, we, you know, so it's funny because people appreciate it so much, though. Like, I was in the store the other day, and I, like, thanked one of the people stocking the shelves at Wegmans because, like, like just thanking someone for doing their job seems like, but doing it well, like, seems like really silly, but I think just goes a really long way.
And on the flip side of it, it also kind of talks about fostering relationships in the industry for you to jump to different employees or different things. We had, over the summer, a friend of mine toured backstage and got to shadow a show and sent the head stage manager like a thank you letter for letting her go backstage and view things. And she jokes and goes, does she want a job? And it wasn't even so much of a joke, you know, if that person applied, they would stand out. And just keeping that going is a positive thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of like be what you want to see, model what you want to receive, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, our next article, sorry, Jess, I'm trying to come up with a segue. So yeah, like being extraordinary in simple things. No, I don't know.
Oh no, yeah,
simple in extraordinary times.
I think it also just relates back to everything that we've just said. Like, this article is basically about, like, you know, revert back to, like, what are the main basic principles of, like, I guess, like, being, like, a good person, or just, like, you know, be friendly, wash your hands, like, it's okay to, like, just, like, simplify. And I actually think, like, this is, like, a really good concept in general to, like, the whole, like, a lot of the articles that we've been reading today about, like, the COVID experience is, like, you don't have to be, like, yes, like, I cracked a joke, like, earlier in the weeks, like, that Shakespeare wrote King Lear during his experience being quarantined. And I think that that's really, really great, because I think, like, you know, they were quarantined for like a year and a half. And, like, it might be that long for us too, not literally, but, like, it might be. But I think it's important to say, like, be productive however you want to be productive, but also, like, note that, like, this is also a time, if you have the privilege to, like, maybe do that side project or explore the thing that you wanted to explore, or learn a new language, or, like, read a book or something like that that challenges you. But also at the same time, like, don't be afraid to, like, also simplify too. Like I am somebody who chases the rat wheel. Like, I definitely always like to be busy. And I always work in high pressure, high fast, like, in industries. And this is like allowed me to take time and understand, like, what am I chasing and why. And, like, you know, there's just a simpler life. Like, it's the life that, like, our grandparents lived, like, you know, just making meaningful connections with people and living in the everyday and the present. And either, if the present is your cell phone or having a phone call or talking to somebody over Zoom, like, that's really, I think, no different than, like, really calling somebody up or giving them, you know, meeting somebody in public and having a chat too. So I think if you find meaning in it, then it is meaningful. And it's important to also just take a minute and smell the flowers, like Ferdinand the Bull. Smell the roses.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the first article really well. Like, you don't have, I mean, right, like, yes, Shakespeare, but, like, you don't have to be Shakespeare. Like, you don't have to write King Lear during this pandemic. Like,
yeah. And
you know?
taking the time to, like, for example, like, I was saying this the other day, I went from working for, like, 12 years straight into grad school and working in the summers. And, like, quite frankly, I was very burnt out. I was going to graduate and then take a month or two off. But I know that month was going to give me anxiety because in the back of my head, it's like, you should be doing something. You should be doing something. You should be doing something. But instead, like, this is, like, for me, like, a really large blessing to, like, and I recognize the privilege of, like, being able to, like, take a minute and just, like, work on some side projects, like, and just kind of fulfill myself and not grind towards something or feel like I have to be grinding towards something. And I think that that's also, like, the world was kind of heading towards this being so exhausted. Like, look at all the memes that came out of 2016, 17, and 18 and 19. Everyone being like, 2020 will be our year. And then, like, it could be, though. Like, COVID, yes, is terrible. But, like, you could also try and find a silver lining and just, like, take that break that you were, like, dying to take 4 months ago.
Right.
That's my piece on it. That's how I'm trying to cope with it, too. So.
I guess I gotta kind of, like, counter that.
Go for it.
It can be hard to do that sometimes. Like, I've been struggling with depression the last few weeks, and, you know, my life, but acutely the last few weeks in a weird and new way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that I don't feel like my best self. And I think a part of what this article is expressing is, like, just try to simplify being your best self. But sometimes even just getting to that can be really hard, you know, depending on your state of mind.
Oh yeah. I find that, like, I'm a better person. I always say I'm a better person if I'm heavily booked. Like, I get things done. I like being busy. It forces me to, like, react instead of sit down and really, like, get contemplative. So yeah, it is also hard to, like, change how you've been living or, like, not be as busy and, you know, not feel like you're being as, like, I have a problem where I feel like I'm not being productive and it spirals me, and that's where I find, like, okay, I'll try and, like, create, but maybe not everyone needs to create in order to feel satisfied.
And I think maybe for me at least, I'm trying to rethink about why I need to be productive. Like, the word productive is what's getting to me right now. Like, do I really need to be productive, or do I need to actually be, like, a happy human and, like, spend time with my family, and, you know what I mean, or, like, and just take care of what I can take care of. And so that's been a struggle for me, is, like, grappling with that word productive.
Yeah, especially because I find pleasure in being productive, or I find happiness in being, like, like, working and doing the thing and being around people and vibing off that energy. I really like to vibe off the energy of the world and feel like I'm involved. So it's hard to also step back and be like, well, take a minute or shift gears this way. So yeah,
kind of to, like, chime in with what Derek was saying. It's like, where I feel like for some people it's like they find joy in being productive, whereas some people are just having trouble being, like, period.
Yes. Yeah.
That's exactly where, I mean, I was definitely in that place, you know, right after spring break, where being productive, it's like, but why even, like, I can't even wrap my head around the concept of getting up in the morning at that point. It's like, productivity is truly, like, in the back burner so far. So, like, yeah, I mean, that is, for some people, the simple thing literally just means taking a shower for that day.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think the idea, or, like, productivity becomes, like, a buzzword in this moment, because it's like, I also could say, like, being productive is just, like, watering your plants and, like, being in that moment and, like, learning that moment. Whereas, like, instead you'd be like, just throw some water on them and run away. And, like, yeah, each person has their own definition for, like, how they're coping with this.
Yeah. Sorry, I know we're running a little bit late. But so Neil Gaiman's wife, Amanda Palmer, actually posted something, and I wish I had thought about this earlier. I would have brought it up, but my sister reposted it, and it was like, don't tell me I wasn't productive today. Like, I produced like breakfast for my child. Like, I produced a 4-hour nap or my 40-minute nap for my husband, which he didn't take. Like, it was really funny and it was really good. And it was like, don't tell me I wasn't productive. I produced so many things. I produced words from my mouth.
Well, we just came off of like a highly productive consumer-based society where we were producing way too much and consuming way too much. And now it's like, I think we need to redefine what that word productive means in a time when like you can't literally be making things all the time or pushing things out all the time or buying things all the time. Like we don't need things to be like, you don't need to have a physical end result of something in order to be considered productive.
Sometimes the process is
enough. Yeah.
Well, I guess I can segue if you need something to do that doesn't, hopefully, is too taxing. There is an article titled "A Virtual Theater Book Group." It is written by the staff members of Exunt magazine. Basically, it is a list of books that are about theater, and specifically, it runs the gamut from like, specific playwrights to specific productions. So it's just kind of a good reading list if anyone who is interested in those books. And just looking through some of the comments on the article, I think one of the big things right now is all of our screen time has drastically increased. For so many of us, taking the time to crack open a book is exactly what we need right now. And, and like, yes, it could be something off of this list or just even something that you've read before, just taking the time to like take your eyes off of a screen and put your nose in a book is probably what will actually make you happier. And you just didn't remember what that feeling was like. So
I want that so bad. Does anyone else feel frustrated that their time is taken up so much with school right now that I wish a part of my self-care routine was reading? Not.
Oh my God, I literally said this to Susan today. I was like, I can't wait to sit down and read a book. Like, I haven't read a book in like a non-academic book.
I watched through the Harry Potter movies again. It was funny. And I bought the play to read. Like, I know it's not like productive reading or whatnot, but it's something to sit down and read and have a good time. And I'm excited it's been sitting on my shelf because I've been, every spare chance I get is like updating this assignment or getting ahead of this or, so I'm excited to be able to just sit down with that book.
I'm going to read.
And all of the stage directions, they do all of them in the show and it's freaking
I saw it in London. So I'm excited to like read the script.
So exciting. I can't wait to read books 6 and 7 of Outlander. They've been on my list for 3 years. Like, I've read through book 5, which is season 5, and season 5 is ending soon. And I'm just like, look, I'm just trying to read those books.
I've been lucky enough to be reading actual books just in regards to my thesis. I mean, they're like instructional books, like they're just like, breaking down like screenwriting and structure, but it's a physical book. Like I get to step away from my computer for a second. And dive in.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's been great.
It's like I'll ditto that with like, I found a really good book for my thesis too, but I was only able to read like half of it because not all of it like pertained. And I was like, God damn it, I just want to finish. Like, why?
Even like I'm getting tired of, my eyes are getting physically tired of like screen time, but like they're also getting tired of looking at text in like a small way for like a prolonged period of time. Mm-hmm. So even like I have Audible, and so I have books through that. So like I just started Hitchhikers. Oh my God. And so like I listen to it as I'm going for a walk, and like it's just so good to have it not pertain to school, not pertain to thesis, and to get out and not have to look at a screen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So after watching this podcast, go read a book.
Oh, read a book.
Go not look at
you guys are reading.
Absolutely, and then we'll catch you back here next week, and you can have a dialogue. We'll invite guests in, have them tell us what books they read. God, I wish.
Oh my God, it'd be so good.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next week.